Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for another edition. In fact, I'm going to say a special edition of What Drives You. I'm Stan Windhorn. I'm one of your co-hosts. With me, as always, is my good buddy, Carl Bauer. Carl, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. This is a special one because this is a dear friend of ours today and kind of a real estate guru, expert. He wouldn't say that, but welcome, Mr. Joe Haberstroh.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So today we're going to talk about, Stan, you want to give a little preface to
Yeah,
what we're kicking off?
yeah. So we've been doing a lot of different kinds of things on what drives you. I've interviewed a lot of people who have found success, and we had this idea because we've got that entrepreneurial spirit. What if we were able to talk to people who have built a business and now for whatever reason, maybe it's just time to move on, but they're ready to sell that business to another person who is looking for something to do on the entrepreneurial side. And we both, Carl and I, agreed that that would be a really great idea. And the first person we thought of is our good buddy Joe Haberstroh, because Joe is currently looking for someone to buy his real estate business. Um, did I cover everything correctly, Carl?
Yeah, I mean, we've Joe actually turned me on because one of our next from our previous series where we were looking at different YouTube creators that I love and follow. One of them was one that Joe turned me on to, is a lady named Cody Sanchez, and she does a lot of episodes around how to acquire businesses. And just a little fun fact before we jump over to Joe's business. And by the way, let me give you a caveat. Joe isn't necessarily out there marketing this business. So this is what they call, Joe, off market type of deal. If there was one, the right number comes in. He's happily running his business. It's profitable. So this is kind of a test from a standpoint. But if the right check came around, Joe would sell it. So Cody has kind of shown us, and let me give you some fun facts that, Stan, while you stepped away for a minute before we were a little pregame, Stan, did you know that over 50% of all the small businesses in America are owned by people over the age of 55?
I did not know that. What's the percentage?
Over 50%.
Let me think about that for a second. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's when they started their business, but they are now the owner of the business. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Okay. I could see where that number come in. It sounded high to me, that age.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of entrepreneurs start businesses at a younger age, but that doesn't mean that they didn't keep their business past the age of 55. So, okay, interesting
Yeah.
statistic. Depends on how you look at it.
And actually, it's about 34% of small business owners in the U.S. are over the age of 60. So Joe and I just turned, is that all right if I share our age, Joe? We just turned 59 last month. We're within a
Whoa.
couple weeks of each other. So we're right in that
Carl
middle.
is always be older than me, though, so I constantly remind him of that.
Yes, I am. What is it? 3 weeks older?
Yeah, older's older.
Yes, that's true.
I'm a couple weeks older than both of you.
There
Yeah,
you go.
couple dozen. Anywho, Joe, tell us how you got into real estate, because I think this is an amazing story that I didn't even know until the last few years that he started this so young. So give us your entry.
So I guess what I'm going to tell you is I wouldn't call it when I got into the business, but it's when I got into real estate, when I bought my first house. And it was, I think, 1986 or 7. I can't remember exactly what year it was, but my sister was getting married. There was a house around the corner from her new soon-to-be husband's parents that somebody had died. It came into an estate and it was for sale. And my dad had told my daughter about it, said, hey, this would be a great starter house for you guys. She said, no, it's too close to Bobby's parents' house. So I said, what about me? And he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, what would it rent for? How much does it cost? I just started asking questions. And back in the 80s, you had all these infomercial people on the TV at, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. And I would watch some of those when I was up and see them. It's kind of crazy. You don't see any of those people anymore. At least I don't, right? But maybe I'm not up at 2 o'clock in the morning anymore. But the house came, it was a little 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 100-year-old house, basement, attic. I mean, it was Pennsylvania. Still had an old coal cellar in it, although it had been converted, but it was $6,250 was the asking price. And so I put an offer in to buy it at full asking price. I think that was the only house I put an offer in at full asking price. And it appraised for $10,000. And back then you could get an 80% loan. That means they lent me $8,000 to buy the $6,250 house. So I left closing with a check. And I thought to myself, this is awesome. I just need to do this over and over and over and over again. So I ended up getting it, spent the $1,200 or so that I had, put a little bit of carpet in it, painted it, put a stove, refrigerator, put a 30-year mortgage on that $6,250 house, or my $8,000 mortgage at that point. I think it was $111. I think interest rates back then were somewhere around 11 or 12%. And I rented it for $300. That's how it started. Then I started looking at fourplexes for 20 grand. They were all look pretty rough. And then about a year later, I went into the Navy. So I had sort of left town and got busy. And I asked my brother and sister, hey, while I'm gone, why don't you start looking for a bunch of these things and we'll just buy them? And they didn't want to do it. So that was the end of that. Ended up selling it 3 years later to the first tenant I had for 15 grand.
Nice.
And that's where
I just want to stop just for a second, Joe, because I don't know that we made this clear, and you're making it clear with what you're saying, but just to clarify for anybody who's watching, when we say Joe's real estate business, I don't want you to think that he is a realtor or a commercial person. What we're talking about, what Joe has specialized in, and you probably got the sense already, but I just want to be clear, is buying a lot of single family or multiple family dwellings that then become rentals.
Correct.
For him. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear, but please keep going.
Yeah,
Joe.
and that was the first one, and I only had one at that time, so I wouldn't technically call it a business. So then, life happened, right? Went through the service, got out, moved to Atlanta, got a job, met a girl, ended up getting married, kids, the whole thing. Just your life starts happening, and you start sort of out of sight, out of mind. I had sold the house and sort of out of sight, out of mind. Well, I moved to Houston in 2006, and I was listening to the radio show, and there was a show called Blue Collar Investor Network, and he was talking about houses for 40, 50, 60,000 bucks. 2008 was about the time of the whole real estate crisis. Mm-hmm. So I called the guy up and I said, really? You can get a house for 50 grand? He's like, yep. Giddy up. I started going to meetings, started looking at houses and started putting in offers, and ended up, I had 9 houses at one time. That included the one I lived in. I've sold a few off, and that's where I would call it a real estate business, when you have a lot of properties. Now, I know people that have well over 100 single family properties. But mine was, to me, I'd call it a small business. I'd call the 100 house guy owner a large business, right? Sure. I'm down to 5 rentals. I do have a house that I built that I planned on short-term renting versus long-term renting. And when I say the single family homes, long-term renting is 12 months or more leases. Short-term would be your VRBO, Airbnb, things like that. Mm-hmm. But it's on a lake, and I built it with the intention of short-term renting that one. We've had it a little over a year, and I haven't put that into the rental pool yet, strictly because I'm just enjoying going up there every weekend myself. So until I get over that, I'll probably end up short-term renting that one as well and keeping it. But that's kind of how I got started in accumulating properties in the last, 18, 19 years.
Joe, the first question that comes to my mind, and I've had people say this to me when I've been looking for properties that I could rent. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, maybe not a lot, but some people will say, oh, being a landlord's a lot of work, or it's hard, or it's risky, or whatever. And my answer is always, tell me something that you can do to make money in life. That isn't hard work and maybe have some risk involved. But what's your thoughts on people who would say that about having rental properties?
Yeah, and I would say it's not hard. I don't think it's risky. Think about real estate as a concept, right? Everybody that writes the laws that we live by day to day all own real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think those people are going to make favorable real estate laws or unfavorable real estate laws? Right.
Yeah, good point.
So they're favorable. So the tax, the way it's taxed, I mean, is good. I save money on my taxes. I mean, Carl, I've talked to you about not paying much of taxes because the government says you have a house here that's an asset that generally goes up in value, but the government, the IRS says it's in service, so it's a product. It's going to depreciate over time, and you get to depreciate it over, I don't know what it is. You'd have to ask my accountant, but somewhere around 23, 27 years. And you take that deduction. And then you got your expenses of your mortgage and your interest and your taxes and your rental income. And a lot of that offsets, and you end up losing money when you really make money. That's the people in Washington and own real estate that made those laws, right?
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe just explained the American way.
Exactly. And it's, there's Robert Kiyosaki always talks about, has a guy on his show that talks about the tax code it's nothing more than an instruction manual on what the government wants you to do so you don't have to pay any taxes.
Good way to look at it.
Right. So and real estate's one of the best ways to do it, again, because the people that make the rules all own real estate, and they're going to make the rules to benefit themselves. We all know politicians are no good, right? And I don't care what flavor of politician you are, right? If your lips are moving, you're lying, in my opinion, So but if you can't beat them, join them, kind of thing, right? So start buying real estate, take advantage of the same things that they take advantage of. And it just works well, especially the more you own, the better it gets. And then you can get into being a real estate professional versus just an investor. And there's all kinds of different things that you should talk to an accountant about, that I'm not one. So I know enough to be dangerous, but I know enough to call my accountant when I have questions.
So Joe, I've learned a lot from you. I know I haven't actually Stan could say the same thing. I've learned a lot from him. Doesn't mean I've listened to either of you. I have learned a lot though. But
I think you've seen a few of my houses, right?
Oh yeah. Now let's be clear. And please, if you're watching again, thank you for watching. I know there's a ton of content you could be watching. Watch to the end, because Joe's got some really good words of wisdom for a young investor, young real estate person, which he shared with me a few weeks back. But let's be clear on your portfolio. So right now you have the lake house, your primary house, and then 5 others or 4 others?
5 others. Yep.
Okay.
So total of 7.
So kind of how this series came into existence was Joe often, I don't know how many times a week, I'll be on the phone with him. We work together in our 9 to 5s. He'll get a call. Hold on, I got to talk to somebody. And it's somebody trying to buy his property. So Joe, kind of walk us through, like, how do they find you? How do they know you're out there? I know you love playing with these people a little bit because they're always trying to lowball you, but kind of walk us through, like, one, how those people are finding you and how you found some of these properties, because I know those stories are pretty intriguing.
The way that people find me is, to be honest with you, I have no idea. So especially my cell number. It's not like if anybody's watching this is old enough to remember, we had phone books. You'd open up, find a name, and there's your phone number, right? I don't know that there's any place like that for cell phones, but I'm sure there's some paid service that has everybody's cell phone in it, right? So I'm sure they buy these lists, right? But lately, I've also been getting calls from people wanting me to buy gold and silver. I haven't bought gold and silver in my life. I had a guy call me one time wanting to sell me pink diamonds. So I'm on a list somewhere. I don't know, right? But they call me. I'll bet you I get 10 calls a week wanting to buy my properties. Now, they all want to buy them for 50 cents on the dollar. Well, sure, I want to buy every house I want at 50 cents on the dollar too. And I've bought some at 50 cents on the dollar. I've paid full retail for some of the ones I own. It just all depends if the number and the math works. To me, it's just a math equation. What can you rent it for versus what are my expenses? Is it plus or minus? If it's plus a little bit of money, it's something to look at. If it's minus, it's a no. In my
What's your
opinion.
formula, Joe? How much obviously you wouldn't want to get something that you're going to be negative on every month.
Right.
But so starting at break even, do you have a formula that you're looking for
To me,
if you're going to do a rental property?
Yeah, if I was cash flowing $100 or more, I would buy it.
Okay. And
Because
because $100 is nothing to write home about, but
no,
you get all those tax benefits,
right.
you get the appreciation of the real
Correct.
estate.
Yep.
So that's your thinking on that, right?
Yeah, and it is. And over time, rents also go up over time, right? As you know, if inflation is normal at 2% or 3% a year, you can figure your rents are going up. I mean, if anybody listening is a renter, as your renewal ever come up, even if it's an apartment complex, somebody said, "Hey, great news, just resign your lease, you're not going to go up." No, they're always going to try to hit you for more money.
Yeah.
Right. So the rent's going to go up over time. If interest rates drop, you can refinance to lower some of those expenses. Here in Texas, you can protest the value of what the appraisal district says your property is worth. You can protest that and get it reduced so you pay less in property taxes, which I protest mine every year, every property, all the time. I have
Do
a
you do
company
that
that
yourself
does that.
or do you use a service?
I used to do it myself when I got to my third property. It just got to be too much because you couldn't schedule them all with the appraisal district at one time and get down there and knock them out. It was like, this was scheduled this day, this day, this day. And as Carl said, I have a real job too, right? I never took this to the point where I could quit my job. So I have a company now that does that, and I pay them a percentage of the amount of money that they save me. Right. So, and if they don't save you anything, you don't pay anything. That's one of the things for those of you in Texas. If you're not doing now, you should do, because if you don't, they don't get you anything, you don't pay anything. So there's really no risk.
Yeah, we do it up here. Joe and I talked about this. I think ours is every 2 or 3 years we're able to do it. It's not every year.
But ours is every year. Your values are going to change. They're going to go up. They never go down. It's the appraisal district. I've never had a year where I've opened it up in May and said, "Oh, well, they dropped this property 15 grand." No, it's always either going to stay the same or go up 20, 30. I mean, in the heyday in 23, 24, they were going up 50, 60, $70,000 a year. I mean, it's crazy.
So we talked about how many calls you get, which boggles my mind still that they can find you.
Yeah.
How did you find your properties? Because I know some of them have just been random, like adjacent, and then others have been more. And then tell me the story, and because I know you just met somebody again who has properties. This, because a part of this series, you guys, is people aging out of their businesses, whether it's a small real estate business like Joe's or a big. He had a guy. What was that guy? 100 and something properties he had. So, how did you find yours? And then let's walk through how we can help you potentially and others sell their business who don't know how.
In 2008, that was the start of the whole financial crisis, right? So I had listened. I told you about the guy in the radio show, but he used to have meetings every week, and he was also a real estate agent that specialized in investors. So he actually found my first 2 properties. And then mostly foreclosures, or I would see signs, "I sell houses to investors," and I would call them. Those, I have not found any of those to be very good, because the wholesalers, the people calling me trying to buy the house for 50 cents on the dollar, generally their houses, they overinflate what the value is to the buyer, and they underinflate what it's going to cost you to get it to where it is, or where it needs to be to put a tenant in there. Because you don't want to be a slumlord. You want to put a good product out there. Like any business, it's all based on the product. And I always look at it like, could I live here? And if I couldn't, what's it going to take for me to live here, right? I don't have any houses in neighborhoods I wouldn't live in or anything like that. So that's mostly how I found them. I mean, the very first property was a VA foreclosure. I made them an offer. They turned it down. I found another one, made an offer on it. And in the 30 days in that closing, the VA called the agent back up and says, hey, we put it back on the market. We got no calls. Does your guy still want it? So I ended up buying 2 houses like back to back. So, and you got to remember the times that I was buying, you could buy with no money down. I mean, there was no money down deals. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever purchased a home that I didn't leave the closing table with a check. I never came to closing with a check. I would always leave with money.
Is that still possible?
I don't know that it is. I don't think it is. It all depends on how you do it. So there's some, you could, if you had some private money lender, like if you had a relative, you could probably do it that way. You know what I mean? That's maybe getting 2% at the bank and you want to pay them 7 or 8 and then refinance out. You probably could.
Yeah. I mean, just now, again, Joe, I tease Joe all the time that he's a redneck from Pennsylvania, but he's actually super smart with an MBA and has been learning. If you ever call Joe, and which some of you may after this to try and buy his properties or talk to him, he always is learning. He's always got a podcast on about real estate or business or taxes or whatever. So he's always sharpening his skills. But what's interesting is the stuff he's taught me about buying properties with no money down, just the spread on the, because you think about it, even though $100 a month, Stan said this earlier, isn't a lot.
Yep.
Times that by the 8 properties had one, there's $800 cash flow or $1,600, whatever it is.
Yep.
That adds up. And then you start, a couple times, like when the rates went way down, I remember Joe was on a scramble for like 6 months to refi these babies and drop his payments way down. So then the spread went potentially way up depending on what cash he took out. There's so many benefits and advantages to it. But Stan, I did ask him that same question. Can you even do that today? And there's a lot of hard money. Maybe let's talk about that for a minute, Joe. What is a hard money lender?
Hard money lender is somebody that is not a bank that will lend you money. They generally charge about 12% interest. They charge a couple of points, which is what 1 point is generally a percentage of the loan amount. And they will lend you the money to buy the house. It has nothing to do with you. It's strictly the house. Meaning if you go to a bank, it's all about you. Where's your tax returns, your pay stubs, all that stuff, your credit reports, all that stuff. With a hard money lender, it's about the house. They could care less about you, right? Because if the math works, if you walked away, they can flip the house to somebody else and they're still good. Okay. So it's strictly all about the house. But it's very expensive. But you got to remember, it's generally short term. You're borrowing money from a hard money lender to acquire the home, repair the home if it's vacant and needs repair, and then you refinance it with the bank, with a traditional bank, and put a traditional loan on it. It's not, so a lot of people may hear, oh, 12%, that's crazy. Well, if you're borrowing 12% for 5 months, big deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My homes, I bought a couple of them through a version of hard money that, even all the closing on a $50,000 house, the closing costs and everything, when it was all said and done, till I put my permanent financing on at the end, cost me somewhere around $15,000 in fees. Not so much interest because like I said, short term, but it's mostly fees. Because when you're in real estate, everybody's trying to get in your pocket.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to switch over because the whole theme of this episode was Joe's ready to sell his real estate business. So talk to us a little bit about what someone would get if they were to buy that. What's it going to cost? Give us the pitch on your real estate business that you'd like to pass on to someone who's ready to take it over.
So the properties that I've sold now, generally when you have a rental property, I have 2 properties that aren't full right now, and I'm in the make ready process and go put tenants back in them. But if you have a house with a tenant in it, it's very hard to sell. Matter of fact, I don't even know that anybody would buy it with a tenant in it, right? So Carl, if you're looking for a house to live in with you and your family, and I have a house for sale, and oh, by the way, there's a tenant in it that the lease isn't up, because when you buy the house, you're buying the lease as well. So if the lease isn't up for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, you can't move in. So it's very tough to sell a house with a tenant in it. So of the 2 properties that I have sold, when somebody moved out, I said, nah, you know, it's looking good. It's on the outskirts of my portfolio geographically. So let me just go ahead and let that go. Right. So fix it up, get it ready, just like anybody would when they sell their house, put it on the market and sell it. So for rentals, I'm looking for somebody that wants to buy a portfolio already done. There's tenants in there, which means you don't have to do any rehab. You just close on the 30th and collect the rent on the 1st. Ready to go. It's that simple. The rents for my property are just under $9,000 a month. And the value, the retail value, meaning if tenants were out and they were done and I would put them on the market, I would sell them the value at about $1.2 million for the 5 houses. But nobody's going to pay full retail for a rental. I shouldn't say nobody. I've done it, but the math has to work. But I know that that's not practical. So I obviously would discount it, but I'm not selling it for 50 cents on the dollar. You know what I mean? Right. So I mean, I would let mine go for $1 million. No problem.
So Joe, just on that note, doesn't it also have? I know the lease, buying a lease, and all that has consequences too, unless you are buying a portfolio and rolling it into either a first timer or you got 20 others and you're just gobbling up those 5 more and putting them in there. But does it also have to do with you know, a little bit of supply and demand too, right? Like, hey, there's no houses being built in Houston or this area, or we're all built out. Like, because some of those houses you bought when I walked through them and could not believe what you were able to purchase them for. Now we're 8, 10, 12 years later, and they've doubled, tripled, quadrupled. I don't know about quadrupled, but
no, they're not quadrupled. But they're so looking at my spreadsheet here, they're anywhere from $230,000 a piece to $260,000 a piece.
Like in my neighborhood, in Stan's neighborhood, you can't buy half a house for that. So I mean,
Texas is a good market to invest in. We have a lot of investors from out of state that buy in Texas because it's landlord friendly. It's easy to evict somebody that's not paying. Carl, where you're from, I think you're allowed to let them rent there for free for 10 years before you can evict them or something like that in Illinois. So
depends if you take the toilets out of your house or not.
But in Texas, it's not that difficult, and it's not that. I think in the 18 years that I've had all my properties, and again, I buy for the long term. That's why, to me, I could, you know, some people may listen to this and say, "You paid retail for a rental property? You crazy?" Well, not looking at it now, 18 years later, what the value is today versus what I paid for it. So if you have the long-term horizon on real estate, I don't know that there's any period of time where you would have lost unless you bought in 08 and sold in 09 or bought in 07 and sold in 09, right? But it's in that respect, it's just like a stock in the stock market. If you're down, don't sell it. You didn't lose anything. You know, but other than that, I don't know any period of time where it was a loser.
So would you piecemeal this? Would you sell one of them, or you want to sell?
I would rather not, because then you know, somebody buys 4 of them, I'm stuck with one. What are we gonna do with one? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there you have it, folks.
So to me, I'm past the one house deal, and the reason I want to get rid of this is I want to start looking at other avenues to do, like maybe a 50 or 100 unit apartment complex. Maybe a small, I don't know, 150,000 square foot storage facility. You know, something like that where it's all in one spot.
Right.
So,
those are so big, Joe, because and let's talk a little bit about that real briefly, because you've dabbled a little bit in hard money. You've dabbled a little bit in one of those big projects.
Yep. The syndications.
So syndications. Which is just, for those of you listening who are rookies to this, there's a bunch of people putting in money and buying a big old project, right?
Yeah.
But so that's kind of the why. Why would you sell these if they're profitable and if they're cash flowing? The reason is,
that's the why. Yeah.
There's an easier, because I've been alongside Joe where he's got 2 or 3, which is very rare, 2 or 3 vacancies, and we're scrambling to paint to get people, renters back in there. So
so it's when they're all rented, like. Most of my tenants stick around for 4, 5, 6 years, right? But sometimes they leave. I mean, nobody's been there the 18 years I've owned all these, right? But I mean, I've had some that moved from one house, they want a bigger house. I had something come open and they just moved over there, right? So, and I get calls today because the rental market here in Houston is tough. It's tight. There's not much out there. I got a call the other day saying, hey, do you have any 3 bedrooms available? I have no idea who this lady was. So it's just, they knew somebody that rented from me in the past. They gave him my number and she called just to see. And I said, yeah, I'm going to have 2 here in about 2 weeks. So I'll call her, but I'll get calls. I get probably 5 calls a year out of the blue asking me if I have a property available. So,
and just again, so we're clear on this business, I use in air quotes, but it is real business. You're doing no marketing, no website, no nothing.
And when I rent, I don't even put listed on a multiple listing service. I stick a sign in the yard. That's it. And my phone blows up.
Yeah.
Now you still have to background check and everybody that comes through, right? Credit, criminal background check. Yeah. I mean, you don't want, you want to know who's in your property. So you still have that, but that's nothing. There's services that do that, and you charge an application fee to pay for that. So it's pretty simple.
Couple questions for clarification. Would you own or finance this?
With enough down, but yeah, I'm not doing a no money down deal. You just take over the payments now. No. I would do an owner finance with probably somewhere around, you're going to need at least half down for me to owner finance it, because I'm not a bank. And again, I need the money to go do some other things I want to do. I really don't want to get into the lending business.
Yeah. And it was okay if you said no to that too, but would you coach somebody, whether owner finance or not, would you, because you got a lot of knowledge and experience with this.
Yeah. And I, Carl, as you know, I did work for a guy that puts together syndications for apartment complexes. I've invested in a couple of his deals, did well. And when he opened up his last company, he asked me if I wanted to be a single family mentor, meaning as people come to him that want to get into the single family business, could I mentor them? And I did. And I've mentored several people, and I still do it today. I mean, I'll sit there and talk real estate all day long.
Yeah.
No problem. You know what I mean? I would even, if somebody came and wanted to buy all these, if somebody was out of state, I would even help them manage it for no cost for 6 months. There you go. So they found somebody or got up on their feet, or we worked out a fee arrangement to continue managing it.
Well, Joe, if someone's interested in taking you up on this, what would be the best way to get hold of you? You have an email or something that you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's just my first initial last name. So it's JHABERSTROH@earthlink.net.
There you go, folks. If you're interested in taking over a decent size real estate rental empire,
it's to get you started.
Coaching, Joe's your guy. Joe.
Yeah. And it's good. This would be good for somebody that's got a 1031, that needs to do a 1031 exchange. They can identify this group of properties to roll their 1031 into. Could be somebody fresh wanting to get into it and buying several at one time, and just it's a good start. So it's a good portfolio everywhere. It's in the kind of the north, let's call it the north central eastish area of Houston.
Yep.
All right.
Is where they're all relatively in the same area.
Yep. Hey, real quick, we'll end on this. We won't talk. Joe's watched a lot of our episodes. We won't talk about cars, but we'll be specific to what would you tell young Joe? Because you and I talked about this the other day, so I'm curious to hear your answer again. Young real estate guy Joe, what would you tell that guy, 18, 20-year-old Joe that you know now at age 59?
I would say find a mentor and get one, because, and Carl, you had this conversation, is why didn't I go out and why don't I have 100 properties today? Well, and what I told you, Carl, was because when I was accumulating property in 2008, 2009, they were fairly cheap, right? 50, 60, 70, 80,000 bucks. You could get labor fairly cheap, which not anymore. But as things started to progress upwards, where those 50, 60, 70,000 dollar houses are now 120, 130, 140, I'm like, I'm in my own head, right? Because we are our worst own enemies, right? I'm in my own head going, oh man, I can't do that. That's crazy. But when you put pencil to paper and you have a discipline that this is the math of it, it doesn't matter if you spend $10 million for a property. You know, if I can rent it for a couple of $100,000 a month, whoop-de-doo. If that math works, I just threw out numbers. So if anybody's putting pencil to paper, calling me crazy, maybe it is. I don't know. But the reality is, a mentor would have said, get out of your own way, do the math. If the house works, buy it. If it doesn't, don't. You know,
Yeah,
and
that's
I would be afraid to think a little bigger.
Yeah. And that's so it doesn't matter, because that guy that bought 100 houses, he's been buying all the way for the last 10, 15 years. So he's just smart. And they're fourplexes and they're duplexes and there are 25 unit apartment complexes and there are single family homes and they're he just never said no if the math worked.
Yeah.
And if he needed a partner, he got a partner, you know?
Good advice.
So that's what I would tell myself. And if that was the case, I'd probably never met you guys, because I never really had a real job. I'd have stayed in real estate.
Yeah. Well, Joe, great stuff. I mean, you're always a wealth of knowledge when it comes to real estate. And anybody who's got $1 million or a 1031 flip flop,
1031 exchange, yeah,
and wants a good mentor and a good man and an honest man, Joe's your guy.
Yep. Appreciate
so
you,
if you've
Joe.
got questions about Houston real estate, you know, you shoot me an email. I'll be happy to talk to you about it.
Cool.
That's awesome. Thanks, Joe. Carl, always good to see you, buddy. Joe, thanks for being our guest. Thank you, everyone, for watching this edition of What Drives You. We'll see you on the next one. Remember to be good humans.